All right. So far we've covered 3 of the 5 fundamental or foundational principles for building trust at work. We've talked about how trust doesn't just happen. To build and maintain it, we need to take care of it, cultivate it, and nurture it. We've talked about how building trust is a two-way street that requires both being trustworthy and trusting wisely. And we've talked about how trust needs a robust language to really be cultivated easily and effectively in the workplace. So now the 4th of the 5 fundamental principles for building trust at work has to do with our neurophysiology. Current research in the neuroscience of trust tells us our brains and nervous systems are wired for both trust and distrust. In fact, these seem to be separate neural systems. The distrust system is designed to keep us safe from harm. The trust system, on the other hand, is designed to encourage us to rely on and work with others in order to accomplish together what we can't do alone. This research has revealed some really interesting things about these two systems that are relevant to building and maintaining trust at work. The distrust system is built into the oldest parts of our brains and nervous systems, the limbic system and the brain stem. It's a protective response to perceived threat from the environment around us, and it shares some of the same circuitry with the fight or flight response. When activated, it sends neurochemicals into our brains and bodies that are designed to prepare us for fight or flight. When the distrust system is activated, the result is immediate, visceral, and happens below the level of conscious awareness. In fact, we stop thinking and go into a kind of pre-programmed defensive mode, mentally and physically, towards someone we distrust. The system remains constantly vigilant about that person, and it's really pretty difficult to turn it off once it's been activated. The trust system, on the other hand, is located more in the neocortex, or thinking part of our brain, as well as the limbic system. This system, when activated, pumps neurochemicals into our system that make us feel good about the person we trust, make us want to spend time with them and work with them, and so on. One of the triggers for the distrust system, and this is what's important, one of the things that's important in the workplace, one of the triggers for the distrust system is difference. The distrust system starts ramping up for action when it perceives we're confronted with someone different from us. That person doesn't have to actually do anything we might consider a betrayal of trust in order to activate our distrust. He or she just has to look or sound or behave differently than what we consider the norm. In today's often multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-generational workplaces, this can pose a serious problem, serious challenge to building trust. Now, the good news is we can use our thinking brains to overcome this low level of distrust and begin to build trust with people who appear different from us. But the kicker is it requires that our brains work. And essentially our brains tend to want to avoid work. It turns out, as the neuroscientists will tell us. So we actually have to take the time and effort to engage our thinking brains, to take a more logical look at the situation and literally overcome this propensity to distrust when confronted with someone different. The thing is, if we do it, the effort is well worth it. And the final fundamental principle is that trust is in the mind, emotions, and body. Trust is a thought that shapes our emotions, that shapes the way our bodies react, that in turn shapes our thoughts, and so on. It's kind of circular. Let me put it a little differently. One aspect of trust is a thought you have about another person. I can trust that guy. I think he's honest, is an example of such a thought. That guy is dishonest and I can't trust him is another example. Each of these thoughts or assessments will generate different emotions and your body will react accordingly. Along with that first thought, honest guy, you might experience emotions of, say, generosity, happiness, hope, and or care about him and your ability to work together. Your body will likely feel relaxed and at ease around him. If someone was observing you, they might say you have an open posture when you're around him. The other thought, dishonest guy, can't trust him, can produce emotions such as fear, anger, resentment, and or resignation. Someone observing you when you're around him or even thinking about him would probably say your body looked closed or guarded. Your breathing may be shallow and high in your chest. You might get sweaty palms. You would probably be feeling the need to defend yourself. The point is, we may think we make completely conscious and logical decisions where trust is concerned, but in fact, much of the decision to trust or not to trust someone takes place outside of our conscious awareness. It takes intention, care, energy, and time to bring more of the process into conscious awareness so we can make those decisions more rationally than we usually do. Otherwise, we're pretty much a prisoner of our distrust, automatic, unconscious distrust system much of the time. The same is true even when someone does something that we might distrust. For example, I talked earlier about having someone betray your trust by doing one particular thing and generalizing that to everything that person does, making it impossible to actually work with that person or very difficult to work with that person because, gosh, your distrust system has been activated and any time you see him, your body goes into defensive mode. You don't want to be around. You don't want to work with. You don't want to engage with. Or if you do engage with them, you might want to fight him. It takes some work. It takes your mind that extra effort to step back, take a look, and say, wait a minute. Is this person just completely untrustworthy? Or are there ways in which I can trust him? Situations and circumstances where it would be not only possible but worthwhile to trust him. Let's do an exercise that can bring this concept home. Again, take out your pencil and paper, pen and paper, and be prepared to write down some answers to a few questions. To start with, bring to mind someone you trust. In this case, it doesn't have to be someone at work. It can be someone in some other area of your life. Once you have this person in mind, and actually see if you can visualize the person, once you have them in mind, answer for yourself, what do you think about the person? What are your thoughts related to trust regarding this person? Honest, maybe, or follows through, or it does things well, whatever it is, write down some of the things you think about this person that makes you trust him or her. What emotions or mood do you experience when you think about this person? And finally, how does your body react? Notice your breathing. Notice your tension or tension level. Are your muscles contracted and tight, or are they more open? Now think of someone you do not trust. Doesn't have to be the least trustworthy person in your life, but someone that you generally don't trust. And again, what do you think about him or her? What are your thoughts, your assessments about this person related to trust? What mood or emotions do you experience when you think about him or her? And again, notice how your body tends to react. So what did you notice as you went through this exercise? Did anything really stand out for you? Was there a difference in thoughts, emotions, mood, and how your body felt as you thought about the person you trusted versus the person you didn't trust? Make note of all this. Make note of how you react to each of these two people. So let's take a moment now to define what the heck trust is. How would you define it? Here is a slightly simplified version of a definition used by psychologists, sociologists, economists, and others who study trust. Trust is choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. There are three important points I want to note about this definition. The first is that to trust is a choice or decision based on a risk assessment. Much of this risk assessment takes place outside our conscious awareness, as we've said. In other words, at the level of our emotions and our physiology. Both the conscious and unconscious aspects of this risk assessment are based on what we observe, what we hear from others, our own past experience, and what our emotions are telling us. The second thing to note about this definition is that we can make that risk assessment process mostly conscious for ourselves and for others. And by doing so, we can begin to see specifically why we trust or distrust particular individuals and why they may or may not trust us. Understanding this makes it easier to build and maintain trust and to repair it when it's necessary. Finally, understanding what you are really putting at risk when you trust someone can help you make the best risk decision. Likewise, understanding what others are putting at risk when they decide to trust or not trust you can help you build stronger trust with them. We'll take a deeper look at this as we go through this presentation. But before we go any further, let's spend a few minutes on distrust. Distrust is separate from trust. It's a whole different thing. As we said, it has perhaps a different neural system. Distrust is the decision to protect what I value based on the assessment it is not safe with this person. It's more than just the lack of trust. It's the assessment what I value is not safe with this person or in this situation. Once that assessment is made, what happens is that you try to protect what you value using largely automatic, unconscious strategies you've developed over the years. These strategies can include resisting the distrusted person's ideas, suggestions, or even data that that person may bring to a conversation. You might withhold information of your own or thoughts or ideas that you have, effectively isolating them because you don't trust them with your thinking. Blaming the distrusted person for problems, even those that, if you're honest, you would admit you may have caused. Engaging in various conflicts with this distrusted person. Or alternately, avoiding conflict of any kind, including constructive conflict. Avoiding making commitments to that person. Avoiding being accountable for your own actions in relation to that person. And finally, one of the things that you may do, and we all tend to do this, is focusing on irrelevant stuff, irrelevant issues, rather than the results that we need to be focused on together. When we experience distrust, the part of our brain responsible for the fight or flight response, called the amygdala, begins to warm up, which results in the release of adrenaline and cortisol into our nervous systems. We begin to see the distrusted person as a threat and use automatic, unconscious strategies like the ones I just mentioned that are either hardwired into our brains or that we've developed over our lifetimes to deal with the threat. Inevitably, the strategies we use to protect what we value make us appear less trustworthy ourselves.